Hello, everyone. As Ricardo mentioned, I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm the co-founder of Lean and Agile for Women. It's an initiative to bring the women across the world and bring their stories, their narratives, and also to bring the women, to offer to each other and to seek from each other in a safe space. That's the premise of Lean and Agile. And I'm here to share a little bit about my thoughts and my perspectives about leadership and the role of leaders in business agility. And I'm very grateful for this forum. In fact, it's the month of November, and it's a time to feel grateful and express gratitude. So I'd like to express my gratitude, to this forum, to this platform. Very grateful that I'm able to be here and be with you all from across the world. And there is tremendous amount of collective intelligence right here in this room, in this space where we are all online together. And that is just so much more impactful than, a group of people or set of people here. So I will share what I have, to talk about on leadership for business, agility. But I believe we all collectively have more power and more potential to expand on this topic together and share our own experiences. So I'll allow for some time and enable a safe space for us to exchange our views or perspectives so we can walk away with valuable insights back to our own organizations and our own ecosystems. So please stay tuned and please note any questions you might have, any thoughts you might have as we go through the session, and please bring them on and we can collectively, we can co-create, the path forward. So let's chat a little bit about business agility and what it is about, since we're talking about leadership and business agility. So there are various definitions and explanations out there on what business agility is, but very simply put, it is the ability of an enterprise to respond to changing conditions or business disruptions quickly and painlessly, while still, of course, retaining the stability and the desired business outcomes. That's exactly what business agility is. It is our ability to respond quickly while still retaining the business outcomes. And of course, delighting your customers. And it's the ability to sense changes that are coming our way internally and externally. So it is about the evolution of values or the behaviors and capabilities of your organization. And also business agility is not a specific methodology or a framework like Scrum or Kanban, where there is a set of principles or processes around. Or business agility is not even a set of principles, right? It's about how an organization operates through adopting growth mindset and through pointing to the same North Star as an organization, which is also the basis of being agile. It's the basis of the agile mindset itself. So let's look at it. Let's dive right into it and look at how we can get there. So let's look at a little bit about the traditional or the institutional organizations versus agile organizations. And we all know, and I think all of us can acknowledge that institutional mindsets and structural barriers are often the impediments for growth in any organization. I think all of us are privy to that. And unless we understand what a traditional organization operates like and what those mindsets are and what those leaders are up to, we can't really make a rational decision of how agile organizations should be built. And I want to add here that not everything about traditional organizations are bad. They have delivered business outcomes for decades, but they're just not enough or adequate or equipped to make that pivot when changes are demanded from the organization, and more so in this age and this business scenario, the current business scenario we have, the changes are just so ever demanding, and these traditional organizations are simply not equipped. And in some cases, parts of the organization or few silos are able to pivot. It could be IT, it could be marketing, it could be HR that are able to catch up to the business disruption, but rest of the ship or rest of the organization is just not equipped. So you see these pockets of imbalance across the organization where one silo is equipped and ready to pivot, whereas the other spaces and silos are not. So that creates all the more a gap or a chasm, if you will, right? Since the entire organization is not pivoting towards the needs of the customer or to the North Star of the organization. I'd like to always draw that metaphor that the organization should have one North Star. Doesn't matter which department within the organization you're looking at. So if you really look at the this sort of traditional outlook and mindset, this, and as I'm showing here on the screen, the traditional organizations assume that the world is predictable, right? It's constant. We know the variables, we know the customers, and what they need for the next 6 months or so, or even a year. And of course, they're static, pretty siloed, and one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. Very hierarchical, matrix-like structures, more boundaries, more rules, more control, etc. Whereas if you look at the agile organizations, right, they tend to have a focused vision, which is their own North Star, if you will, and also uses rapid decision-making strategies. So instead of going through a change control forum and taking weeks or even months to make a decision by when the business criticality probably would have been passed by then. And also using next-gen technology, and also most importantly, the iterative approach to delivery. So more experiments, more smaller experiments leading to larger impacts. So those are some of the basic distinguishing factors across traditional and agile organizations. And I think just by looking at this, we know there is the fact that all organizations should pivot to being agile organizations, I think that is non-negotiable. There is no other way you can serve the customer better. So having said that, if you look at the leadership styles, right? Again, traditional leaderships or the leaderships that were successful in institutional mindsets and in those organizations, it's all about control. It's all about rules, boundaries, and it is also about hierarchy. Do it because I said so. It's because I'm at a particular layer in the hierarchy, I have the empowerment to take certain decision, not being collaborative, etc. Now, if you look at the lean agile leadership, it's all about it's a modern approach. It's about freedom of thought. It is enabling and empowering room for creativity, and also value the outcome, and also welcoming new ideas, innovative ideas. So leaders, obviously, who are from the 21st century in the modern, modern era, will align and understand what this is about. And also, the traditional leaders have relied more on the bureaucratic structures in place, which we call red tape, and hierarchical structures. So it is also about the higher up you are, the more authority you have, and the more you could do what you want. It is not about what the organization needs. And they also have a little bit of blame model and outsourcing the responsibilities and accountabilities for their own decisions, especially if they're wrong or bad, and just pass the buck, or pass the choices to somebody else, and also making the choices and decisions without considering or utilizing the knowledge, the collective knowledge of the organization. So that again makes them siloed and makes them superior, but it doesn't serve the narrative of the organization. And also, you all probably will remember or can recollect, this kind of leadership is more of a role of more like a patriarchal, right? The parent role. They're either nurturing or they're either critical, right? And it's almost like the perceived right of leaders here is to treat their employees or their organization like children. And the employees respond similarly. They respond like a child. You either comply or you rebel. You don't align per se, right? Compliance is not necessarily alignment. You comply because there is a rule, but you probably are not convinced. So either way, neither party benefits with this kind of approach. So, but when you look at an agile leader, if you look at leadership in an organization which is geared towards business agility, they consider the overall or the long-term impact of their actions on themselves as well as others in the organization. And they're absolutely accountable for their actions. And they walk the walk, talk the talk with integrity. And they are able to park their ego, which is huge, which is very important. And more importantly, they're not afraid to constructively rock the boat if you need to, and shake things if they don't work, and also empowering their people to make mistakes. It's okay. The experiments should be done. If experiments fail, they fail. But there's a lot of learning that comes from those experiments. So effective leadership is not just about you or your job or your title as a leader, but it's about you embracing the bigger picture. And it's about the systems thinking and empowering your teams. And in the big picture, you might be just a small part of it, but then the change or transformation you can enable as a leader is just so much bigger. So that's the leadership that is required in an agile organization for business agility. So consider this, where, have you ever been in a situation where, you've seen a leader stand up and crisply, very firmly conveys a vision, a long-term vision of where we are, where we want to be, and the path to get there, and inviting you all to join the leader on that path, and inviting your thoughts, your perspectives to make that happen. It's not quite common, but we do see those leaders, and you clearly can distinguish that leader from the rest of the pack. You know that this leader can make a difference. This leader can lead the organization towards business agility, and lead the organization towards the desired business outcomes, because that leader just is so impactful and powerful in conveying the vision, and also willing to be a servant leader and not a hierarchical or a patriarchal leader. So when you see that leader, you know how to be. And if you see the leaders who are otherwise, you will know how not to be. So having said that, I really like this metaphor when I first learned about it, when I first saw it in an article, that when a huge ship needs to make a turn, U-turn, or a angular turn, it takes massive power to counteract the hydraulic pressure to shift a rudder that may weigh just hundreds of tons. Now, to allow the ship to turn quickly, a small rudder that only weighs around 100 pounds is built into the trailing edge of the big rudder, right? And it is actually behind the propeller. And this turns first, and rest of the ship follows pretty easily. So Buckminster Fuller first used this metaphor to demonstrate how little things can impact huge matters significantly, and how one person doesn't necessarily have to be a leader. It could be anybody in your organization, any member of your organization can make a huge impact. So the moral of the story is, do not underestimate any leader in any capacity. Just trust that the leader who has the vision and who has the grit to move the needle forward, to the next step is very powerful. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So I always love this metaphor because I truly believe that any member of the organization can bring huge impact. We just have to be open as leaders. We just have to have the invitation ready for people to join us and contribute towards the big picture. All that we need to do is to extend that invitation and be open-minded and be open to experiment and be open to fail. Failing fast is the premise of being agile. If you don't fail fast, you would fail at the end, which is far more expensive than it is at the beginning. So having said that, let's talk about leadership capabilities, right? And so what are the traits or capabilities of a leader in an agile organization? And then we know that some of the traits which are fairly common sense traits that you can see and you can distinguish are, somebody who's acting with integrity, with fairness, and who's setting clear goals, as I just showed, for individuals and teams and to the organization, encouraging others, being open, and also making sure you're raising the morale of your team members and motivating others, and also steering individuals away from their own self-interest and towards the interest of the organization. So if you look at some of the leaders in your own experience who probably made a difference are someone who are shaping that agile culture, mindset, ways of working, and enabling innovation, fostering collaboration, and also enabling design thinking, systems thinking, etc. So when you see such a leader, you know that they can make a difference, which is pretty profound. So let's chat a little bit about transformational leadership, and there's a reason why I highlighted transformational in the leadership earlier. And the 4 I's of transformational leadership are, again, very prevalently available on the internet. But it is about the idealizing influence and intellectual stimulation, inspirational motivation, and also individualized consideration. And there are huge explanations and perspectives for each of these, if you will. And these are the transformational leadership elements. And predominantly transformational leadership is associated with servant leadership philosophy. And most of you probably have heard this term, servant leadership. And it's because they both involve working closely alongside members of the team inspiring them, motivating them, and using others to help identify the needs for change, creating a specific vision to drive change. Not just saying we want to be a great organization and we want to stand out, but it's about the specific vision. Growing your sales by X%, or bringing down the cycle time to process, your quote to cash by a certain number of days, whatever it is, but creating a specific vision to drive that change, and also execute it as a cohesive team. It's not siloed. You're not involving just few people or a set of people, but you're executing it with a cohesive team to drive that motivation among the team members. And also it's about connecting placing all the eyes here. If you're looking at idealizing the influence, if you respect and trust. And if you look at intellectual stimulation, how are you challenging assumptions positively? How are you creating space to innovate, create? And how are you challenging them with, let's say, hackathons or individualized considerations, how do you promote, upskill, develop your organization, members of your organization? How do you coach them, mentor them, one-on-one, group coaching, whatever it takes? But how do you show that empathy that that is required for individuals to feel important, feel recognized, and are motivated to contribute more to the organization? So all these traits or characteristics embody servant leadership philosophy. So think about Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela. They continue to be examples of this philosophy. They have not really stood in the forefront and said, this is how you do it. And you do it because I say so. They did not act from a place of authority or power. Rather, they acted from a place of empowerment, enrichment, motivation, inspiration. And both the leaders, great global leaders, Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, were non-violent. They trusted that their motivation, inspiration to the masses, to the people, can work better than being violent, being in an authoritative space. So that's a very powerful example that we have in these leaders. So if you look at the agility in leadership, or what does leadership agility mean, and why it matters in this context, is as a leader in the modern organizations where you have to make decisions quickly in rapidly changing landscape, if you are not equipped with the mindset and with the decision-making power to make those calls in time for your organization, it has adverse effects on your organization. So your ability to make those decisions and respond to changes, and also have an anticipatory plan. So it's always easy to be reactive, but how are you a proactive leader? By anticipating the changes or anticipating the disruption and preparing and leading your organization accordingly. And also it's about turning vision into action. We have seen several leaders convey their vision one way or the other. Where it fails often is converting that vision into action, action-oriented vision. And you need those leaders who can convert their vision into a very strategic action, a tangible action, an impactful action. And also evaluating the successes and failures to spring forward, which means, what I mentioned before, it's okay to fail, the permission to fail, and frequently retrospecting on where you are, where you have to be or want to be, and what does the path look like, what are the gaps look like, doing the gap analysis, again, without holding any negative emotion nor blaming anyone. Here is where we are, because we trust that everybody did their best in the capacity they could with the best intentions. So how can we learn from our experiences, not mistakes, experiences, to spring forward? So while the past is important, future is critical, super important. So I always draw the metaphor of a windshield and a rear view mirror. When you drive the car, you're looking at the rear view mirror, which is small, but still is very needed in your car, very critical in your car. But your windshield, or your mirror in the front, or the glass in the front, is so much more important, because you have the road is ahead of you. So you leverage the rear view mirror, but you just don't look in the rear view mirror all the time, or else accidents are bound to happen. So that's the gist of making sure that you're evaluating your successes, your failures, but your goal is to spring forward. And of course, we talked about servant leadership, and again, our role models in the world who are peace warriors tell us that servant leadership is the only way to lead, because it's humbling, and it's powerful, and it shows results. So let's look at the frozen middle. And this term refers to the middle management, the middle managers, that layer where they're neither the frontliners nor the executives or the vice presidents, but they are your managers. And this layer is important that we discuss, because this layer is pretty huge in any organization. Because if you look at the pyramid structure, middle management is the band is pretty broad, and unfortunately, these are often viewed as, this layer is often viewed as an impenetrable layer, where feedback from the front line stops, and strategies go to die. And also they're often viewed as a redundant part in the organizational structure of future. But the fact is, and again, research also shows that organizations that were the most successful attribute that success to effective involvement of this middle management layer. And it's true. If we really dig into our own stories, that's a fact, because they are the ones who empowered the teams. They are the ones who act as a liaison between the front lines and the executive management. So it's very obvious that the middle management are critical to strategy execution within large enterprises. But then most of the time they're overlooked or undervalued, they're not invested, the organization doesn't invest a whole lot into that layer, etc. But what we need to develop leaders in business agility organizations, or towards business agility, is to increase the investment in that layer, and to begin to recognize and reward them with proper incentives, and also ensure that they're not burnt out. So either there is even distribution of the load, or more delegation happens, and also invest in their upskilling, invest in their career growth, enable them, empower them, and involve them, engage them. They're not after the fact leadership layer at all. If you engage them, it motivates them, and they look forward to contributing more rather than informing them. And middle management are the most effective when they're engaged. So that's extremely important. And again, talking a little bit about servant leadership, this applies to both middle management, upper management, anybody who is a leader really. Servant leadership is the most important non-negotiable trait of a leader, taking his or her organization towards being an agile organization, and an ability to pivot as an enterprise, not siloed. So if you look at again, if you take the examples of Gandhi or Mandela, they never led by title, they never led by authority. They listened, they understood the power of persuasion, not coercion. They empathized with their people, and they mentored them, they coached them towards positive outcomes, and they believed in stewardship, not being a dictatorial, not having the patriarchal leadership, but being a steward of the goals, of the intentions, of the vision, and also promoting genuine team ownership, not as a lip service. So it's easy for a leader to say, "You're empowered, go do whatever you want." But behind the scenes, they could be meaning something different, and they could be doing something different. They could be enabling something different. But what we need here is having a genuine intention to empower the teams and have them own the things that they need to. That's extremely important. So it's a philosophy, and it's a set of principles that enrich the leaders and enriches the lives of the people working in an organization. And last but not the least, something I'm personally very passionate about is how can we bring diversity in the leadership layer. So having or developing a great leader is one aspect of this concept. But the other side of the coin is how can we bring diverse thoughts, diverse backgrounds, diversity in gender, diversity in culture, and how can we enrich that layer so we have a better representation of leaders who can make informed decisions, who can make rational decisions and not siloed decisions. A leader could be extremely effective. A leader could be a servant leader, but then if you have all the leaders of the same kind, you can't realize the potential of that leadership. So I advocate quite fiercely for gender equality in leadership layers in the organizations for the same reason. So you have diverse perspectives, and everybody gets representation and a seat at every decision-making table. And also, one thing that we all need to acknowledge and live with is advancing diversity in leadership, ensuring that we have a diverse group of leaders shouldn't be looked as just an HR initiative, a checkbox, or a burden rather, but look at it as an opportunity, because every diverse leader that is added to your diversity, to your leadership layer, acts as a value add, or somebody who is bringing in a new perspective, radical perspective, which otherwise you would not have. So it is about having a strong leader, efficient leader, a servant leader, with all the qualities and attributes we talked about, but it's also about how can we bring diversity into that aspect. So we are looking at the whole, not the parts, and we are equipping an organization to respond to changes better, to business interruptions better and effectively. And all of us are pointing to the same North Star of the organization, which is true business agility. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. This really means a lot that we are able to chat together and discuss together. So I'll pause here and invite questions or discussions from the audience. Over to you, Ricardo. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Padmini, for your talk. Here we have some questions for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of times this concept of North Star.
Yeah.
How can be sure that anyone from the company understand this concept, understand the objectives of the company? What can you do as a leader that to really create a culture of the North Star in the people?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Ricardo. So the North Star of the company is established by the leaders of the company, right? So for example, if you look at, take a bank, for example, right? If the North Star of your bank is to reduce the time it takes from the loan request to process the loan request, right? And obviously, everybody wants their loans to be approved in a quicker fashion, faster. So if your bank is taking 15 days, but the organization is working towards reducing the cycle time of 15 days to, let's say, 9 days, right? The entire organization, all the members and organizations within the bank should be working towards that goal of reducing that cycle time from 15 days to 9 days. Now, how we do it and how the leadership enables that is what we talked about, right? So all the silos, all the work streams in the bank, in that organization, should be looking at that North Star when they are designing policies, when they are developing processes, when they are developing software. Whatever they do, they're pointing to the same North Star of how can we reduce the cycle time of this request so we can delight the customer, so we can engage the customer, and we can retain the customer. And that North Star vision should be reiterated and refocused by all the leaders in the organization. That's what I meant by North Star.
Thank you very much. And another question is when we talk about business agility, organizational agility, we always mention tribes, squads, Scrum, Kanban, and something like that. I have to say that it's the first time I see a presentation, a talk that didn't mention any practice of IL, and you mentioned some concepts that for me are very important on any organization: respect, influence, leadership, as a key. I don't know how to say it, to the key ways to get to really business agility.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit more about it?
Absolutely, another great question, right? So you just hit it on the nail when you said that. It is not about the frameworks at all. It doesn't matter which framework you're using, which tool you're using, or what process you're putting in place. It could be Scrum, Kanban, it could be any kind of scaled framework, matters less. What matters more is how the leadership is aligning with the members of the organization. And when I read somewhere recently, it really struck me that process is a second-class citizen when compared to people. People are first-class citizens in the organization. Process, tools, techniques, technology comes later. So building the trust, respect, and building those bridges and leading by example, leading by influence and motivation is so critical, and everything else will fall in place. You can always bring frameworks and processes from anywhere.
And of course, also you mentioned about the leadership, the diversity of leaders about it. And I feel that sometimes we ask to the leaders to become agile, to think different, but sometimes they aren't able to do it. They don't know how to do it. They don't have experience, training. How, as a consultants, how can we help them in order to adapt to this new role of leadership in an agile environment?
Absolutely, right. So more than consultants, I'd like to call ourselves as enablers, as transformation agents. And I think we can influence the leaders to be agile leaders. And as somebody who is contributing to business agility, by being there, first of all, by empathizing with them, right? By being in their shoes, by motivating them to go on Gemba walks, right? Something that they can do. They go into the field, so to speak. They move closer to the teams to understand the pain points and challenges of the teams. And by influencing them positively to do the right thing, to lead by example and not lead by authority. And again, it's not easy, as we say. It takes time, it takes experiments, and we have to work with the leaders very closely to design and execute those smaller experiments, look at the results, and refine and again reorbit. So it is about us working with them with trust and empathy and being with them through the process that we can enable them better.
Of course, I agree with that. That is it's an iterative way to get it. It's not a one shot. No, it's not a silver bullet, right?
Exactly.
And another question that I have is it's about the fail thing. We as an agile mentors or enablers or consultants, we always try to push something like that, the fail mentality, that you can fail.
Yeah.
You need to fail often, you need to fail quickly. But being honest, I don't like to fail. I want to be sure that what I am doing is the right thing. And sometimes maybe the boss says, okay, no problem, you fail. But I, as a person with my ego, I don't want to fail. But this for me it's an habit, a culture. How can we work with the people in order that they adapt this way of thinking of, okay, fail is not bad. You need to fail. You need to fail to learn.
It comes from leadership, right? That permission to fail has to come top down. Because when a failure happens, and if they are negatively impacted by it, if they're reprimanded for it, and it's not taken well, as you mentioned, then the teams will be apprehensive to experiment. They will hesitate to experiment. It's the cultural tone. It's the tone that the leaders should set for the organization. If the tone is we have to be successful no matter what, I cannot stand failures, I don't like failures, and failure means that we have gone back 3 months and I lost so much money and this is the opportunity cost, etc., the teams will kind of shut off their creative spaces and innovative spaces, and they work like machines to produce software or whatever product they're working on. So the permission to fail has to come top down, and the leaders should be explicit about their permission that they are giving to the teams to fail. And again, fail is not like failing completely, right? It is an iterative approach of piloting, spiking, and ensuring that, we are experimenting on something, and we might not lose and fail, the product completely, but it could be one of the several set of possibilities. And that is the innovation space.
Of course, of course. And another concept, another question is, you mentioned something like that. So, how do you change the vision to action?
Yes.
Sometimes companies are very they have very difficulties to act. They spend a lot of time planning, thinking. Are you sure? No, I'm not sure. Okay, how as an agilist enablers consultants, how can we teach or help the organizations to really act quickly?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's about acting quickly, and it's also about devising a strategy to act, right? To act, because people don't really take that seriously, and most of the times the execution fails because the vision is not clear, right? The leaders think they're clear, but unfortunately the vision is not clear. And ambiguity in vision creates gaps in execution automatically, because there is assumption while the teams are executing. So a clear and well articulated vision, and also reiterating the vision many times, just so it's allowing for questions to come in, can lead to action. But back to your question of how can we make them do it, that is the product breakdown coaching that we do, product vision breakdown coaching that we do, as to how does your vision translate into tangible body of work, a tangible epic, a tangible feature that can be driven to conclusion and delivered into production. So it is about helping them first be clear about the vision, the product or the feature, and then how does it translate to a tangible body of work, and how can it be executed. So I think it's really being with them every step of the way, and none of the things that we discussed can be done in silo, right? It has to be done in its entirety. So we're actually coaching them to be good leaders, servant leaders, convey good vision, earn the trust, allow for creativity, allow for innovation. It's a package. It's everything.
Of course. And another question, you mentioned a lot of times about diversity, right?
Yes.
And inclusion in the people. You as a woman, have you ever felt something different in the organization as a consultant? Because, as you know, sometimes the IT environment is only for men and something like that, and then arrive a woman and the woman says, okay, you need to do this or something like that, and sometimes this is a shock on the mind. Have you ever felt something different because you're a woman, something like that? Sorry about if it's very, very direct, the question.
Yes, that's a great question. I personally have been very fortunate so far. I've worked with good leadership, good companies who really valued diversity and who valued developing women leaders. Even in my current organization, I've been extremely fortunate to have great leadership. But yeah, I mean, on a general note, we see lack of women leaders. We see lack of women representation in the organizations, or different levels of and different layers of organization. And we see less women speaking at conferences. And I'm so glad you invited so many women to to this forum.
Yes.
It's a proud moment. But we need more of this. We need more women to come out and share their narratives, share their experiences, and show the leadership in their own spaces. So I do see it happening around me, right? In other organizations, in the places that I'm involved in, or in the conferences, or other places. Um, and that's the premise of my organization. Lean and Agile for Women is all about showcasing women, raising the floor for women, and creating a platform where we have women who are coming and sharing their stories. In fact, the recent initiative we are doing, in fact, is called Lean and Agile 100. We are bringing 100 women and their stories, and we are publishing them. Because, yeah, the hope is, it can inspire anybody out there.
Of course, and also in my experience, I've been in too many projects about agile transformation, something like that. We are a group of coaches, and we try to have always one woman, two women, because in my opinion, you are able to engage quickly with the client, with the people. You have this ability. I something that the men we don't have it. It's a fact. It's not a theory. It's a fact. What do you think in your experience? It's your. Do you think that you have a different role being part of an agile team, transformation team? Do you have, as a woman, you have a different role, different activities?
Absolutely. In fact, it's interesting that you asked me this, because I'm sharing about women leadership in another conference next week. It's all about women leadership and why we need more women in leadership. An equal number of women and men. I think as women, you see more participatory style of leadership. You see more empathy, and also I think women leaders can enable more work-life balance policies in HR, because we as women, we handle a whole lot by design, right? We are the primary caregivers for the children. We are, in most cultures, I come from India, and I know most South Asian women are primarily responsible for the house chores. It's the culture, right? It's changing, but it's the culture. So if we are at the forefront of leadership, we can make way and we can create more work-life balance, incentives and policies, and then so much more. I mean, women just have a different, softer approach to leadership and to the organization.
Totally. I agree with you. And I see it many times in my experience.
Thank you.
I want to ask you something. We as transformational coaches, we like to have workshops with people and reach people and touch the people and to have this contact, to see their faces. Now with this pandemic thing, we're not able to do that. Well, we don't know if we will be able to do it again, maybe in 1 year, 2 years. How it changes your way of coaching? How do you change your way of working with the teams?
Yeah. And in fact, this is the hot topic, in several, touch points that I'm seeing, several forums that I'm seeing. I think what we need right now more than ever is empathy and compassion, because people are losing jobs, people are losing their loved ones, and there is a huge struggle in the families and the society as a whole. So I think our coaching should be fundamentally based on empathizing with the other person, and have that understanding as underlying flavor when we are coaching people, and also do frequent check-ins one-on-one with folks, right, in the organization as to what is going on, because they might not express it as openly as we would like them to be all the time. Especially in group setting, people are conservative to share their personal things. So I think to understand where they're coming from will give you additional insight into how you can better coach them and how to better change certain processes or even incentives or whatever it is, right? Policies. I think we should base it on empathy and compassion. I think that should be at the front and center of coaching in these times.
Yes, of course, I agree with that, and also I have in my experience also that sometimes people people reach you to just to talk with you.
Yeah.
Maybe they see you like a psychology, They share their problems, their thoughts, something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have those skills to drive it, but you need to do it because they see you like a person that they to be like they can have confidence with him, no?
Yes.
With you. So you need to change sometimes your hat and just to be sometimes a friend, something like that,
Yes.
and forget the practice. I don't know if you have lived that.
Yes, absolutely. I do believe in that. And I think we are experiencing more and more of it right now. And as you said, who knows when this will end? 6 months, year, 2 years. So I think we all need to kind of start building our coping mechanisms and sustenance mechanisms in this crazy situation and see how we can be more efficient, more effective, and more productive in the constraints we have.
And another question that I have to, another concept that I highlighted is that that you should lead not by the title.
Yes.
I like a lot this concept because all the leaders they usually lead by, okay, I'm your boss and you have to do that, and something like that. You need to arrive early. You need to be all the time with your camera turned on because I want to see what you are doing. Something like that.
Yeah.
Today with this environment, it is impossible to do it because
Yes.
You as a woman and me as a dad, I have a little child, I have to take care of him, something like that. But it's not easy also for companies to drive this. What do you recommend to a leader in order that reduce his command and control way of working and something like that, in order to empower people and to be confident that they are doing the best they can?
Yeah, and so leader not by title, but by the virtue of your ability to lead, right? I think if you are a servant leader, you're there to serve, but you're also there to lead the vision, right? So you're there as a servant. I mean, servant not in a negative connotation, but you're there to remove any kind of impediments, that might come in the way of these teams being empowered. As you said, how can we empower them, right? To trust them. You can empower somebody only when you trust them. And when you trust somebody, it is 100% trust. It is not a conditional trust. So when you have trusted your team to deliver certain aspect of your delivery, you should trust that the employees have the ability to juggle between their personal life and work life. Because as you said, we are at home, and this is working from home. It is not working remotely. Because working remotely is, you could be working on a beach, you could be working from Starbucks, you could be working from anywhere. But now the situation is you're working from home. You have to be home, which means your personal life and work life, the lines are blurred. They're getting integrated. So and that's why I'm bringing up empathy so many times, because you never know. They could have a sick child, they could have a sick spouse, a sick parent. So, if they don't show up to a meeting, or if they're not on target with the deliverable, I think being reactive is detrimental, right? Instead, be proactive and check in more often to see where they are and how they're progressing. But again, base empathy, right? For all these as your base, emotion, and ensure that you're trusting them 100%. And with that trust comes empowerment, and with that empowerment comes responsibility. When you're empowering somebody, they feel responsible, they feel accountable. So it's a cascading effect, it's a snowball effect, and we just have to enable it. So as a leader, you're just somebody who's enabling, right? You don't have to be the doer. So that will be very profound.
Very profound. Another question that I want to ask you: sometimes when we arrive to a new company to perform a transformation project, we create a transformation backlog in order to have visibility about what we're going to do in these 6 months. We often forget the change management.
Yeah.
We just arrive and try to train all the people in Scrum, in Kanban, in Lean Start, or something like that, but we didn't manage the change. Sometimes we forget, or we say, okay, we're going to send an email, and it's going to be our change manager. What do you think about it?
Yeah, change management, is probably the most controversial topic in the agile world, because people assume that you can change anything, anytime, because you're agile, right? But that's actually not agile at all. It is, in fact, the opposite of being agile. I think change management should be viewed holistically. So it's not about, can you change this part of the code? Can you just change this part of the feature? But it's about being holistic about the change, right? When you're bringing in some change, what is the ask? What is the purpose of the change? And if you do this change, what does it impact? Does it impact the revenue? Is it an opportunity cost if you don't do the change? Which customers and stakeholders are impacted? And if they're impacted, what happens? What is the cascading effect? So a change should be viewed holistically, from finance, from people management, to the future strategy impact, to budget, to everything. So it's not about sending one email at all. It is about really coming together as a team. I mean, you don't have to go through change control board like in waterfall projects, but the key people coming together as a team and making those informed decisions is very important.
Padmini, I want to thank you your time, thank you your passion for the topic. Thank you very much to be with us.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the talk to the audience. Yes. And I'm going to share to you a graphic facilitation that Mariano did for you of your presentation. It's really very nice. I already said it. It's very, very nice. You're going to love it.
Nice.
For sure. And thank you very much. I know that you want to share something final for the audience.
I think, what I would like to share with the audience is each one of us can be a leader. So don't look for somebody who is with a title, with a specific empowerment to be your leader. You can be a leader. No matter what your role is in the organization, you can lead. As long as you consider and keep in mind all the aspects of what we discussed during the session, anybody can lead in any capacity towards any outcome. It's just that you have to trust that you can lead. That would be my message. And I thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you very much, Padmini.
Kairós, it's been a wonderful experience. And I think this will be very valuable when the recordings of all the talks are out. It's a collective intelligence right there.
Of course.
Huge thanks to Maria, you said, right? The graphic illustrator.
Yes.
The one who,
Mariano.
Mariano, so thank you so much. And, I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to share you the contacts from this movement in Mexico, the Agile movement, and you're going to love it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Pleasure
meeting
you and everybody here. Thank you.
Bye-bye.